We are the
Carwells. I'm Emily.
And I'm Sarah. Welcome
to the Superhost Labs podcast.
Beautiful. All right. Well, for our listeners who are joining us today, welcome back. Today we have a super special guest, Sandy. Sandy, thank you for joining us.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So for our listeners who are unfamiliar with Sandy, Sandy is someone that we also discovered on TikTok. Ironically enough, I'm like 98% sure that before she had any sort of a following or anything at all, she had posted an interiors video, and the interiors just absolutely screamed at Emily and I. And I remember sending it to Emily and I was like, I don't know who this is, but they're underrated and I'm obsessed with their style. And then all of a sudden your face started popping up. And so I started doing some more stalking and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the same person who had that beautiful interior. So Emily and I have been fangirling over her for a minute. We're super excited to have her on. Sandy, for our listeners who are unfamiliar with you, why don't you give them a little bit of a background on how you got started in Airbnb and a little bit about your story?
Okay, yeah. So I guess you could kind of call me, especially compared to you guys and a lot of the people that I follow on TikTok that were inspiration to me, I'm kind of like the rookie. I'm like the new kid in town, I guess you could say. I'm just a baby and I only have one property, but it was a big one. So backstory, I'm actually a hairstylist and a salon owner. My first renovation project was my salon. I bought like a 100-year-old building in the downtown of my little hometown and totally renovated it. It was like a garage and cinder block garage. Took the garage doors off, put big floor to ceiling windows in, painted the whole thing black, real shake up in my town, my small town. And then we also renovated the house that I like live in, the house that you love, the interiors that you loved. And this house was built in 1869. It was my great grandparents and grandparents, and we totally gutted it and renovated it. And I picked everything from where the light switches go on the wall to the floor, everything. So that was super fun. I love design. I'm not an interior designer by trade. I just love it. Very creative. I feel like I have an aesthetic eye, just naturally. It's what makes me good as a stylist too, I think. So I got bored and I wanted another project, and I was closed for 2 months. My salon was closed for 2 months in 2020 due to COVID. So I had zero income coming in for over 2 months in the state of Ohio. And I had a tenant. My building that I purchased, I inherited a tenant. So I had a renter upstairs and he was able to work from home and still work and pay me rent. And that honestly saved my butt. I was not only not making money for 2 months, but we were literally paying utility, mortgage after we just put tens of thousands of dollars into renovating my salon. So it was in that moment that I realized I wanted to get into short-term rentals. And we started looking for a cabin in our rural area. So that's kind of a backstory of how I got interested in it. I love design, and we realized the value of passive real estate income, rental income, just from that one experience. That was the first time we had experienced it because my job is very active and in person. And when that went away, it was like, oh shit, like we need money in a different way. So we started looking in 2020 and we finally found the perfect cabin really close to our family farm property and purchased that, closed on that in 2021 and launched it last year as well. So
that's awesome. It's crazy. I feel like there are so many people who like are really into the design side, came from a different creative industry, like fashion or a stylist or a hairstylist or something like that. And that's the kind of people who we connect with, who really see the value in design. They always come from some other like creative industry. And then when they get into short-term rentals, they see the value in that. Usually it's like the investors who you kind of have to, like just standard investors that you have to convince into design.
Yeah.
Yeah, we knew that was important because of where we're at and stuff, which, yeah, that's a whole nother story. The location of where we're at and stuff, we knew design was important.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my next question is, so your property is in somewhere that's semi-remote in Ohio?
Yes. So we are it's about an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes east of Columbus, Ohio, which is the capital. And then kind of the same distance west from Pittsburgh. So we're like right in the middle of about an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes from Columbus and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the Ohio Valley. So like we're in Noble County, Ohio. This is where I grew up. I grew up in a big 200-acre farm, and was away for a long time. And then me and my husband decided to move back, and we are the least, Noble County, Ohio is the fourth least populous county in the state of Ohio. And it's a total population of about 14,000 people in the county.
Wow.
Two high schools. I went to one of them, graduated with 88 people. This is a rural area. There's no national parks. There's no anything. But that's the beauty of it, is how rural it is. So we purchased a cabin that is surrounded by 55 acres. It's kind of down in a valley. It has ponds. It has woods surrounding it. And that is, yes, we made the cabin gorgeous, but like that is what we sell. We sell the remote. We're selling the rural.
Yep.
So that's, and I knew design had to be, to get people to come here, I knew the pictures had to be wow. I knew design had to be wow, because why would they pick us over going to like Hocking Hills or something in Ohio? Because Hocking Hills is Hocking Hills. We're not Hocking
Right,
Hills.
100%. And
Yeah.
it's amazing that, you chose to start somewhere that is pretty high risk, right? So many investors will like latch on to a booming market because it gives them some sort of guarantee that they know people are traveling there anyway. So even if they really screw up on a design front and an amenity front or whatever
Right.
else, they'll still make money. Whereas you were like, nope, I'm doing it once, I'm doing it right, and I'm doing it out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, honestly. And I always joke when I've never utilized AirDNA, because AirDNA told us to charge like $120 a night for our 12-person cabin. And we book at $1,000 a night on the
Yeah,
weekends.
$20 a night. Oh
And,
my gosh.
and yeah, yeah, for a 12-person cabin, 4 or 5 beds, like on a retreat, literally on 55 private acres with ponds and hiking trails, like $120 a night. I'm like, that's a cheap hotel. No,
Yeah.
absolutely not. So I was like, screw that. I was like, not using that. And I was like, I don't know, like I'm going to make it what I think it should be. And we've just worked really hard to push it, not just on Airbnb, but on socials as well. And that's, what's made it successful.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. AirDNA, we've kind of run into that in Michigan as well, because it's not like a super tapped in market yet. So that when you're running comps, it's also like you're kind of just winging it at some point too, because there's really no comps, and any comps look like grandma's house. So if you're putting design into it, you're going to make more anyways. So AirDNA is fantastic for like the Nashvilles, the Scottsdales, to really like run the comps against them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, 100% agree. Well, I have like 18 more follow-up questions to that, but before we get into all of that, as we do every episode, we open it up with an Airbnb horror story. So if you have one, we would love to hear it.
Yeah, so we've been so lucky, honestly. Like when I say we have amazing guests, we truly, truly do. Like I follow you guys and Jeremy and Michael and Zoe, all the Airbnb people on TikTok, and I have heard you guys' horror stories. I was like, this isn't happening to me, but in my head, I'm like, just wait, it'll happen. So recently, actually, this summer in June, we had a group of guys stay there for a bachelor party, and it was actually the mom who booked it, and she reached out to me and was like, I see you don't allow parties, but this is a small, like 6 guys. The father was going to be there, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, yeah, that's fine. It's not like a raging party. It's like a group of guys. We have bachelorette parties. Groups of girls come to our cabin. That's fine. We get there on the day of turnover. Never hear from them or anything. Everything was great. And my mom was actually showing up there to be the laundry person on staff. And we had a same day turnover. We had people coming in 5 hours. And it was a Sunday, I think. So like me and my husband and my mom were going back there, and then a couple cleaners. My mom starts blowing up my phone, bring a ladder. There's water everywhere. And we get back there, and essentially, long story short, it took us a while to figure this out, but the shower, they had overflowed the shower in the master bathroom, like, maybe just standing under the water, sobering up, I'm not sure. And it overflowed into the floor vent, and went in like our ductwork and our laundry room ceiling in our lower level. And the ceiling tile was filled with water and collapsed and exploded everywhere. So we show up, and there is water all over the laundry room, and my mom didn't know if it was coming from a pipe leaking or what. So eventually we got up there on ladders. There was no leak. We couldn't find a leak anywhere, and the water wasn't continuing. So what we found, this is a lesson for all Airbnb hosts. We have little drain wig hair things in our shower drains now because apparently the drain was draining slow. No one told us. And these guys were just, being guys and probably showering off a few beers, and they overflowed the shower. Water went into our ceiling, collapsed the ceiling tiles. It was a huge mess, but like luckily nothing was damaged. So that's honestly the worst thing that's happened to
It's
us.
literally that exact to a T same story has happened to me at the lake house, but they didn't like
Mm-hmm.
it didn't collapse the ceiling. It seems like a kid just like barely got water over, but it went down the pipes, went into the
Yeah.
downstairs bathroom, and so
Yep.
now I have like two or three ceiling tiles that have a water stain on them that I need to replace, but I got so lucky
Yes.
that it wasn't so much more than that.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy just how, and again, it wasn't, there was nothing like crazy damage, but again, sometimes if that would have been me, I probably would have called the host and been like, hey, there's water in your basement, but no, we just had to find it out and, get ladders and mops and figure it out in a few hours and get cleaned up for the next people. But the show must go on, and we handled it and all was well.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
Yes. Well, that's amazing. And I will say, like, when people are looking at different Airbnb strategies and they're thinking about whether they want to offer a more luxury experience or not and how much they want to spend on design, when you design it well, you can charge more, and then when you charge more, you tend to get a clientele that's like more respectful. They're paying a lot of money to be there. They want
yep.
it to be this great experience. So I totally agree with you. It's like the people who we bring on here who are doing some really cool things with the design and offering quality experiences, they don't have the same nightmare stories as others.
Right. That's like the worst thing that's happened. And honestly, it was kind of an accident, I guess. But yeah, luckily there was no big damage done.
Wow, that's
Beautiful. So did you have to go get new ceiling tiles like in the five
No,
hours?
no, our ceiling tiles are I use them in my salon, and I also put them in the game room, basement, laundry room of this cabin. They are from Pro Ceiling Tiles, and they're vinyl, so they don't absorb. You can like twist them, and they are like almost like a thin PVC vinyl, so you can like wipe them off with a wet rag, and they do not absorb stains or water or anything. So we literally pulled them all out, dried them off, cleaned them off, and shot backed up some water and mopped and put them back up.
wow.
Yeah,
Amazing.
highly recommend if you have a drop ceiling. Yes.
Yep, we use those in the lake house too. So it's
Mm-hmm.
literally the one room we didn't put them in was the downstairs bathroom that it like seeped into, and I was
Yes.
like,
Yes, of course.
"Oh, you found the
Yeah.
one spot that I had absorbing
Right.
tiles."
Yes.
Naturally. All right. Well, we'll kick it off with some questions here. And I say this on every podcast. I am such a talker and I always talk over Emily. So I always try and shut up for a while and let Emily speak. So I'll let Emily kick the questions off today.
Yeah, well, so you've kind of introed us to you and your story and your location. So you have the one property. Do you have plans to scale? And do you think like you would scale outside of your immediate area or anything like that?
I don't know. That's something we talk about quite frequently, and we kind of have two very opposite thoughts. We have do absolutely opposite of what we're doing, and my husband and me lived in Columbus, Ohio, for a decade, and love Columbus. It's like a second home. Most of my friends are there still. Have a lot of connections there, and we've talked about getting something cool downtown there because especially with I don't want to say post COVID because, but especially after that kind of dip in more city, traveling to cities and stuff and more rural areas spiking, I think that's increasing again. So we've thought about diversifying that way and maybe getting something in downtown Columbus where, people are coming to concerts and shows and Blue Jackets games and all of that. Ohio State University is huge football season. So we thought about that, which would be totally opposite what we're doing, but it would diversify. We'd have a rural, we'd have a more city type rental. And then we've also thought about capitalizing on what we already have. We do have 55 acres, which is quite a bit of land. I mean, it's a huge loop, and there's trails cut all the way through it. There's natural springs on the property. It's truly a gem. It's a beautiful piece of property, and there is a ridge further away from the main cabin, the hideaway, that we've thought about building more like tiny home glamping type I don't want to say yurts, but more maybe like tiny home, tiny little cabins that would attract to the demographic of like 2 to 4 people. Because right now, like we don't have couples and like single families, like a mom and dad and or a couple and a few children. We don't have that demographic booking our 12-person cabin. It's too big, it's too much per night for that. We have groups of people gathering to book that. So we aren't targeting that couple that is just like, you know what, let's like go spend 2 nights like during the week, or let's go spend just randomly last minute, let's go travel somewhere. So we've thought about building places like that on the property so we would get more return on investment for one piece of like we wouldn't literally be buying another whole home. We would be building little structures, but we would still be maintaining the one property we have very closely. So
Yeah, that's
Oh,
cool.
I feel that struggle.
yeah,
We do that same
or we'll do
thing.
both. I don't know. I
And you
mean,
can.
in time, and exactly in time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
super smart to
Yep.
think about diversifying your target audience too. Because, like, a lot of people talk
mhm.
about diversifying their portfolio, like on the beach, in the mountains, stuff like that. But you're like more looking at the size of the groups, and they can bring different profitability depending on the size of the group that you're
Right.
looking to target. So that's a really smart way to actually think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are you actually cleaning the properties yourself? Because I saw the video of you cleaning a property, and I'm like, oh, it's so satisfying to watch. Um,
Sometimes, yeah. So with being rural, that's one of our struggles is cleaning. And I actually was just texting with a couple people last night that might jump on board. I have put stuff on Facebook, Instagram. I mean, we have trouble finding cleaning help, and our place is so large. It takes about 4 people 4 hours working. Like I mean, we sleep 12 people, so towels and bedding for those 12 people. We have a laundry room on site with 2 washers and 2 dryers. One person, and a lot of times it's my mom if we don't have another cleaner that we're paying to do it. One person can literally stand in that laundry room for 4.5 hours in between a turnover and do laundry nonstop. Spot treat, do quick loads, juggle all of that, be folding it, be handing it off to the cleaners to remake the beds, or folding and putting back in our storage room. So that's our biggest struggle, is finding cleaners, to be honest, and finding people to help us. And we not only have interior work, but we have a 55-acre property with ponds and things that we have to treat. So I mean, for example, on a Sunday, if we have a turnover, it literally might be all hands on deck. If it's nice weather, we've got cleaners that we're paying inside to be like turning over the whole place, and then we're outside treating the ponds, spraying weeds, picking up sticks that have fallen, moving firewood. It's a whole ass place.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's a lot. So I do help inside when I have to, because you have to. It's my business, and no one cares about it as much as me. And if there isn't a human body to clean it, then that ends up being me.
Yeah.
So
yep, 100%. So, are you still running the salon, and you're still doing that entire thing on top of all of
yep,
this?
I worked behind the chair all day yesterday. Yes. So
Good for you.
I normally do like 3 days a week. I have an assistant, and I normally do 3 days a week. And then I've got a few other girls in the salon that booth rent off of me. So I hate to say it's on autopilot, but I have a great clientele. I'm not taking new clients. So I have like my extension clients that I do, and I see them every 8-10 weeks, and everybody's on a rotation. And it's not growing, it's holding where it's at. So but yeah, I've worked really hard to have that. So at this time, while we're still in the infantile stages of the short-term rental business, I am still doing that as well. Yeah.
Wow, good for you. Oh
Yeah,
my
it's so much
gosh.
to
Yeah. I
juggle, but we
guess
love
you
to
could
see
say,
it.
I know. I guess you could say good for me. Good for me or crazy for me. I don't know.
Both. I think we relate to
Sometimes I
that
wonder.
mentality too. So yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. That's awesome.
Beautiful. Emily, do you want the next one?
Yeah. So because we always talk about or we have to kind of explain to people how much you need to spend per square foot to have a fantastic design, and you're obviously really into that too. So if you might not know exact numbers, but if you could like average how much per square foot you spent on the design for your cabin, what would you say that is?
Gosh. Um, we we put a lot, we put a lot into it. I was trying to do the math last night actually on roughly what we spent, and then we had outside stuff too. I mean, we bought a hot tub that was $10,000. You know what I mean? So I mean, it is,
Same.
like it is. Exactly. You literally think you have the inside furnishings. You're like, okay, I need a bed, a mattress, pillows, and a nightstand and a lamp, and then you're like, and this, and this, and this, and this, and it just keeps going. Like roasting sticks are outside around the fire. Like ours bled into the outdoors, but I'm sure at your Michigan lake houses as well. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't just end in the bedrooms and the living room and stuff. So I would say rough estimate, maybe like $14-15 a square foot on the property, to furnish it. So we've got about 3,000 square foot, 3 levels. With the game, we bought a shuffleboard table for the game room. Um, Put a bar in down there, live edge bar. So I mean, we did it because we wanted to. There's nothing else that people are coming here for other than the
Yeah.
property.
Yeah.
Well, and that price is really good. Like when we
Really?
design properties, we always tell, yeah, I mean, you did a lot of the work yourself, right? As far as like you didn't have to pay for a designer, you're designing it yourself, you're installing
Right.
it yourself. So you get
Right.
to kind of cut back on
Right.
those costs, like the labor costs
Yes.
itself, but we always tell
Mm-hmm.
clients like if you're going to offer a nice space, it's on a low end $15 a square foot, on a high end $30 a square
Yeah.
foot, and you
Okay.
have to
Yeah.
include those things.
I
Like
would
it,
say,
you need the
yeah,
hot
I would
tub.
say average. Right, exactly. Yeah, I would say on average it probably was about, with just maybe the inside stuff, maybe like $16 a square foot. But yeah, it was. I always tell people, and I tell anybody who asks me, and I've seen you guys talk about this too. To me, this was common sense, but I don't know if it is to everybody that's setting up an Airbnb. I've seen people talk about how they can furnish an Airbnb for like what we spent on like one bed or something. And I'm like, how? There's no way. I mean, we bought like
Wow.
solid wood platform bed headboards. I mean, you can jump on those things and they do not. I mean, we test once we set up the mattress. I mean, you can shake them and they barely move. They're heavy. They take a couple people to shimmy over. And we have rave reviews about people are coming to sleep at your place. You need to splurge on your beds, your mattresses, your couches, your dining room, things that people are weight bearing, going to be sitting at, laying on, jumping on, playing on. You need to spend money. You can say, I mean, we bought curtains, floor to ceiling curtain panels that are beautiful from IKEA for our living room. Who cares? They were, inexpensive. But you can't do that with a couch because you're going to be blowing through it every year, every 6 months.
Absolutely.
A
You literally,
million percent yes.
Yeah, you need to spend money on your showcase pieces and your weight bearing pieces, and then you can, go a little bit less inexpensive, Target, IKEA, Wayfair for your rugs and your textiles and your lamps and stuff like that. So
yeah, you literally listed like the four main things that we are always telling people to spend the most on. You listed them exactly because that's what we always talk about. Like people, the thing that people are spending the most time on.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
where are people gathering? Where are they spending a lot of time on? Yeah.
Yep. And I
exactly.
mean, we've done both, right? When we first started an Airbnb, we furnished things for as little as possible. Like my first one bed, one bath, I spent $3,500 on furnishing it. And it's one of those things that, like,
Wow.
looking back now, I'm like, furniture broke immediately. Like, I had to replace it. All of a sudden,
Yeah.
your property has to be put down, and you can't rent it to someone until you get it replaced. And then oftentimes you have to rephotograph it
Right.
because the thing broke and you couldn't get the exact thing to replace it with. And so we'll get pushback all the time on people being like, well, I've seen people do it for pennies on the dollar to furnish it. And I'm like, look, this is a business.
It's
If
not
you want
worth
it to be
it.
sustainable, you need to invest in things that are going to last, or otherwise you're going to pay for it in the long run. And that's fine if you want to do that. But I'm telling you, it's like way more of a headache if you do it wrong the first time around.
Mhm. I agree. Yeah, we have not had to replace anything yet. And I believe it's because we bought quality.
1000%. And your guests appreciate that too. I mean, if they're coming to pay $1,000 a night for a weekend, they do not want to be sleeping on a bed that's squeaking the entire time or feels like it's going to give out or a sofa that's uncomfortable. It's just no.
Right.
Yeah, and
Yep.
especially like you're really smart about it because in your market, like you said, people are coming there. They're not doing anything outside of the home itself, right? They're coming there for the home. So they're all going to be gathering on the couch a lot. They're all going to be staying, like, they're not going out to the city to go do something. They're spending the entire time there. So you want to make sure it's as comfortable as possible.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have another question for you, kind of circling all the way back to the beginning of this conversation when you were talking about how you had a tenant above your salon, and that was the first time you kind of realized, how nice it is to have real estate kind of paying you in the background. So this property that you bought for Airbnb, did you buy it specifically for Airbnb, or were you living there originally and then decided to Airbnb it out?
No, we bought it specifically for Airbnb. So in 2020, after everything kind of reopened, after my business was allowed to reopen and stuff due to guidelines, we instantly started looking into um, the more rural cabins. And we are in a very rural, beautiful rolling hills like Ohio Valley. And there's a lake here. It's not, I don't even think it's a state park. It's not a state park even. It's just a big lake, and it does attract a lot of people, but a lot of them are local. And there are some cabins and houses around that. So we actually, my husband and I went and looked at those properties. I think we looked at, I don't know, three just that summer of 2020. Just almost like dipping our toe in, like if we find something, we'll and it's right, we'll pull the trigger. And we didn't. We kept looking, and the property that we actually bought had been a family friend, and he was older, and he's actually passed away now. And he decided he wanted to sell it, and he actually called my dad and said, "Hey, I'm gonna sell." Small town perks. I everybody knows everybody. He called my dad and was like, "Hey, I'm gonna sell this piece of land, this property. I didn't know if anybody in your family might want it." And my dad didn't even he didn't even like tell us at first. And then when I got wind of it, my mom finally told me that this had happened, and I was like, "What?" I was like, "Yes." I was like, "Oh my gosh, that would be the perfect Airbnb." I was like, "Kevin and I have been looking, you know that." And she was like, "I know, but," and I was like, "No, I'm dead ass serious. Like this is gonna happen." I was like, "This would be the perfect property." And I saw it instantly. I saw people visiting from the city. I saw people coming, and it being an entire experience in itself because I knew how pretty the property was. I would visit it as a kid. So it just worked out. And I think that for us, it wasn't so much like, I say it was equal parts head and heart. It wasn't so much like, we are buying an Airbnb. Let's run the numbers. Let's buy one in the city where we're going to make X, Y, Z. It wasn't so much that. It was like, we want to buy an Airbnb, but we're going to wait for the right thing. And we knew first off, we wanted one locally because I am a perfectionist. I wanted it to be pretty. I want to be able to oversee the management of it, at least initially. And that's what we did. And we waited, and the right thing happened at the right time. And I feel like it's kind of launched, it's been this whole thing, and it's launched me into a whole nother thing. And I love it so much. I just decided one day to start sharing about it on TikTok, and it's crazy just the doors that has opened.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I think what resonates with people, or at least what resonated with us so much in watching you, is that you've thought it all the way through. Like, I think a lot of people get into Airbnb and they think it's this get rich quick investment that, you can set up
Yeah.
really quickly, automate, and then be done with it and not think about it forever. And for you, you were coming at it from a perspective of like, hospitality first. These are the things that you have to do. This is how I'm
Yeah.
making sure that every single guest is prioritized. And that immediately, me and Emily were like, she gets it. like, like we can tell that, it's something
It's so
that's
funny. So many
quality.
people have told me that. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We've stayed in Airbnb. Like my husband and me have we've stayed in both hotels and Airbnbs. We kind of always, depending on what we're looking for, we check both, depending on where we're going or how long we're going. And I know what I like. And I know from running a salon and being in the customer service industry for a decade, I know that sometimes when something looks pretty and you offer amenities as simple as snacks and waters to your clients, it it makes a big difference. And I know a lot of people don't, if you haven't been in that customer service or you don't take the time to learn hospitality, then you might miss out on what you could charge per night or a really good Airbnb. And I know Airbnb gets so much shit sometimes, and I just want everybody to have a good one. You know what I mean? I want other people, like, I want to be successful, but I want you guys to be successful, because people that are coming to travel to you, they're not coming, they're coming to Michigan or where yours are. I want those guests to have a great experience at your place. I want guests traveling to California to have a great experience there if they're choosing Airbnb. Like, I am proudly making mine nice, but I also want other people's to be nice. So maybe Airbnb doesn't get such a bad rap overall. So
Yeah,
we're not all bad.
that's a nice mentality to have. We get comments all the time that are like, stop telling people about Airbnb being good because you're going to ruin it, or too many people are going to get in. And we're like, no, we're just going to create good hosts. The people that aren't going
Right.
to do the good job, they're going to get pushed out eventually. Like,
100%.
as it gets more popular,
100%.
those people get pushed out. We want the good hosts to be involved in
Right.
it so that regulations change and they allow
Yep.
more people to do it, because if you're a good host, then they're going to start allowing more good hosts in.
1000%.
Yes,
And
definitely.
I mean, I think you're such a great example, and we're kind of pushing this boundary too here in Michigan of, like, again, AirDNA is not the end all be all, and vacation spots are not the only place you can invest in an Airbnb. Like, the lake house that we have here in Michigan and the properties that we're touring in the next couple of days to add on more lake houses, they are not the tourist destinations in Michigan. They're not the Hocking Hills of Ohio, but that
Yeah.
doesn't matter. I mean, if you've got an
Yes.
experience that's immersive and you've got things to do on your property and it's beautifully designed, and like, people just want to gather together, especially in Airbnbs. Families are coming to gather and hang out with each other. They're not necessarily coming to go to a concert or to go shopping or to go do something. They're coming to hang
Yes.
out together in your space. And so if you can offer amenities, if you can offer this experience out in the middle of nowhere, you are still going to have people that come and stay with you. You're still going to make great profit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I say that all the time. People in our area, and I don't know if you guys experience this. I don't know if you're from where you have yours in Michigan, but we legitimately still, it's been a year, and we legitimately still get asked, me, my family, like, so how's the Airbnb doing, from local people that live here? They can't wrap their head around that people come here. And I was like, they're not coming here because of here. They're coming here because of they're coming here because of the Hideaway. They're coming here because of what we created. And people don't understand that. If me exactly what going back to what you said about they're not coming to go to a concert. If me and my husband are going into the city and we're going to a concert or an event or something, we're probably going to grab a hotel room downtown. Just being honest. Because we're not cooking there, we're not hanging out there. We're just literally going to do something and then going to sleep. But if we go somewhere with our friends, we're actually traveling to Utah in October and going around to some of the national parks. And we booked 2 Airbnbs, one in Moab and one near Zion. And because we're going for a longer time, we want to be able to cook and hang out on the deck and have a fire at night after we've hiked and things. So it just depends on what you're looking for, but there's always groups of families and friends looking for exactly what you described, what you offer, what
Yep,
I offer.
100%. Yeah, and I mean, when we're looking on AirDNA, when we're comping these properties in Michigan that we're thinking about purchasing, they pull up and they're like, "You'd make 12 pennies." Like, it's just like, it's
Right,
so
right,
doomsday, and we're like, no, like, we have proof of
right,
concept at this point. Like, move.
right.
Like, we're willing to put the money into it. We
Yeah,
want no
yeah,
competition, because I'm sure where
yep,
you're at as well, it's like there's not someone that's next door to you that's offering the same experience you're offering. Like,
no,
if they're going to
no.
you, you're it.
Not at all.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
you get to
Yeah.
capitalize on
Yeah.
that. You get to charge what you want and you get to kind of capture that entire clientele as yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's nice because like I'm sure a lot of people would think like your direct competition in a lot of people's head is Hocking Hills, right? And I bet there's going to be a
Yeah.
lot of people that are like, "Well, why would if I could go to Hocking Hills, why would I go there?" Because you create a good experience. This is such a good example for people who are like, "I can't invest in a rural town because I'm going to be competing with the Hocking Hills or with the Gatlinburgs or whatever," but you can. If you create
Right.
the experience, they'll come to where you are for that
Mm-hmm.
experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the places like that, they get booked up fast and they're busy. They're more populated. So if someone truly wants like an escape, if we're talking about the rural markets, that's what they're going to
Yeah,
look for.
100%.
Absolutely.
So, if you're thinking about investing in Columbus as maybe a potential scaling option, what do the regulations look like there? Is that a decent Airbnb market, or have we done any research on it?
A little bit, a little bit. I feel like there are quite a few. I don't think I think Columbus is kind of in that middle ground where it's a big city, but not that big yet. And I don't think it's so hot like Nashville and maybe Austin, like some of the cities that you just know Airbnbs are just like a dime a dozen. Like they're everywhere. I feel like Columbus is still a little more um, there's not as many, but what is there? They're nice standalone homes. You don't see, and we've actually called a couple places as far as we've even thought about arbitrage. I know you have the experience with that. We've even thought about arbitrage to get really in that downtown area where there are like concerts going on and it's very walkable just to get again have a totally different and for us somewhere to stay when we want to visit the city. Like you always talk about that, like we would love to have a place to go and be for a couple nights here and there, go up for a weekend or in the week, and that we have not had any luck with that. So I think that they are pretty heavy on the regulations with that. But I'm pretty sure there's not a lot of regulations when it comes to like if you own or rent a standalone home, you can Airbnb it. I mean, they're peppered all over the city.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not sure about occupancy. I would have to do more research. Honestly, I'm not sure about like occupancy maxes and all of that. So that would be something that we would absolutely look into. But as far as I know, there isn't like a glaring, like big restriction that would hold us back.
Yeah. Apartment complexes have kind of gotten wind of Airbnb and they're either, it's
Yeah.
like saying Voldemort if sometimes if you say it to them, or they want to do it themselves and they've kind of figured out that they
Yeah.
can like kind of be a hotel in a way. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, the apartment complexes are getting wise to the Airbnb game.
Yeah, they're not a fan
Oh,
anymore. We're
yeah.
sad to see it.
Yeah. That sucks. Yeah. That's unfortunate. But I mean, yeah, it is what it is. And that's just going to be the flow, right? Like everything's always
Yeah.
evolving and
Yeah. So, kind of talking about going back to design, when you started designing your Airbnb, did you have like a strategy behind your aesthetic, or did you kind of design it just based on what you liked and you were like, hopefully this resonates with other people?
no, I definitely had um a plan. And I am a huge, this might sound corny, but I am a huge Pinterest fan. I create vision board. Everything I've ever done, I create vision boards on Pinterest. I did it for my salon. I did it for my home that I live in, and I did it for the Airbnb. And I don't want to say that I don't like things that are in the Airbnb. I definitely do, but I wouldn't have picked them for my home's totally different. It was funny. Our contractor who did this house remodel that I live in also did some work for us at the cabin. And he joked the entire time. He was like, I can't believe you're not putting any black in here. He was like, what's Sandy's sick? She's literally not painting everything. I have multiple rooms in this house black. All my like trim and like I have different black. Like everything is very dark and moody, and that's so is my salon. That's my vibe, and but like it's not for me. Like the cabin isn't for me, and it just didn't in my mind. That just didn't translate. I could have done that, but the cabin outside's it's a log chocolate brown and it had the green metal roof. And So I went with a very earthy color palette. So the very first thing that I do with any space is come up with a vision board on Pinterest and a color palette. And then I stick to that no matter what. And just mix in different textures, just different elements. And then I picked the paint colors based on kind of the color palette and went very like earthy neutrals, some clay colors, mossy greens, rich greens, things like that. And that was the color palette. And if you go down through, it's so fun to go back over your vision board after you've done it. And if you go back down through, I can literally pick out, I'm like, I have, that's in the cabin. Oh my gosh, that's in the cabin or my home or whatever. And I just feel like if you have an overall vision board and a color palette and literally every decision you make, you stick to that. Mix textures, you know, mix your color palette throughout the whole home. It just feels more elevated and designed and cohesive. So yes, I absolutely pick things that I like. Would I have them in my home? No, because my home isn't a cabin in the woods. But I think that's the beauty of it. You kind of have to have the vibe of the space in mind and who you're
Yeah,
attracting.
preach all of that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All of that. There's so much there that like
Yeah.
we'll deal with we when we start designing for people or when we were really rapidly designing for people, we would find, two different people. We would find one who's an investor who did long-term rentals before and they don't value design at all and they don't want to spend more than like 2 pennies a square foot. And then we would run into the other investor who wanted a vacation home that they also Airbnb'd, and they would get so emotionally attached to what that property looked like as opposed to what would perform the best on Airbnb. And so they would come to us and they'd say, hey, I want to make max profit. Tell me what I need to do here. We need an expert to tell us. We would tell them, and then they would be like, well, I don't like that. And I'm like, well, it's not for you. It's not the point. So I think, it's so,
Right.
yeah, it's rare to
Exactly.
find people who really understand that, especially on the first go around. Because that's an area that a lot of people get tripped up on where they're like, well, they'll have a husband who's like, well, I don't even care what the bathroom looks like. And I'm like, your husband's not the one booking the Airbnb. We've got to get on the same page.
Exactly. You better care what it looks like.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
going to put all this money into it and then we're going to cut corners. No.
Right. Right. No.
Well, we have
No.
one last question here as we wrap up, and I'll let Emily ask it.
Yes. So, obviously, you said you've had a pretty good experience so far, but what would you say is your least favorite part of the short term rental industry or running a short term rental, anything like that?
I would say the laundry. It's not even the cleaning. The laundry for us at our property is, I don't want to use the word horrendous, but I do. I don't know what it is. We've like eaten through towels trying to get stains out. I mean, it is, yeah. We obviously provide all white bedding and towels. Buy nice quality towels. We provide white towels, a hand towel, and a washcloth. And um, yeah, I feel like it's a cabin in the woods and people get wild. I don't know if they take them in the pond or they wipe the grill off with them. I don't know. The laundry has been a challenge. We've looked into laundry services. Um, we're so rural, they don't exist here, laundry services. So it's not like we have to do it at on site. And yeah, that's probably my least favorite part of it. I honestly love hosting. I love the guest communication. I have communicated with clients for years. I have hair clients that have come to me for years. That does not bother me at all. I have like an automated check in, pre check in thing that they get sent, and that doesn't bother me. It honestly, if I could pick one thing, it would be the laundry at turnover, would be the least favorite part of it, and it has been our biggest
Yes.
headache,
Do you have room for
honestly.
a second washer and dryer in your space?
We have two. We have
Yeah,
two
she
washers
has
and two
too.
Oh,
dryers.
yeah. It just.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I mean, so if 12 people stay for 4 days, 3 days, 3 nights, 4 days, which we've had a ton this summer, think of, I don't know how many your sleeps, but like the bedding and the towels, we put two sets of towels out if they stay more than 2 nights. And it is, and I mean, we have enough for turnover that can go back out, but those
Yeah.
have to be laundered eventually. So yeah, the laundry, I think it just,
Oh my
it sucks.
gosh.
Our laundry, yeah,
I feel that so hard.
That's a
but
lot.
that's
Yeah. Oh my
business, right?
gosh.
I mean, there's things in every business. Yeah, there's things in every
Absolutely.
business that people hate about it, or that it's just the part that
Yeah.
sucks, honestly. And I feel like, but it doesn't deter, it doesn't make me not want to expand or not
Yep,
want to do it.
100%.
It's
Yeah, we
just part of it.
went the second we got into our house because we do not have room for two washers and dryers. We only had room for one, and so I went to I went to Menards and I was like, "What is the biggest washer and dryer that you've got?" Because I need it to be like commercial grade, and I need it to hold
Right.
like 5 quilts at a time. I need the biggest one you got.
Right.
And they were like, "Here you go." And it was a pretty penny, but honestly, it's like your
Yeah.
cleaners and you, whoever is cleaning that property, are in there so often, and any way that we can alleviate some time required in that property, we do. So it's absolutely worth the splurge.
Yep.
100%.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Yes.
Well,
Definitely.
as we kind of wrap up here, and thank you so much for coming on, will you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am on TikTok and my handle is sandy.watson, and also Instagram. Again, my name, Sandy Watson _ because I couldn't get the same on both. Why? I hated
Oh,
that,
that's the
but
worst.
yeah, it's just my name.
I'm literally adding
Yes.
you right now so I don't forget on
Awesome.
Instagram because we have you on TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will link your stuff below as well so everybody can find you really easily. This was so fun. I feel like literally everything you said, I was like, she's living in our brains because you have the same mentality for about everything that Sarah and I always talk about. So
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah,
awesome.
I know when I came across you guys' account as well, and it was after we had launched our Airbnb. Um, I because I before launching, this is also something that I will say. There's people like Michael and Jeremy. They are all about the business end of it. They're all about the AirDNA and the comps, and not that you guys aren't as well. I know you're part of Superhost Labs, and you guys are into that as well. That is, oh, I should have said that's my least favorite part. I should have said that is my least favorite part about having a business. I forgot. I hate that part of it. I know it's important, and I do limp through it and suffer through it, but I have my husband, and luckily my mom's actually a CPA. So she is amazing at helping with all of the book work and all of the back end business stuff. I'm like, yes, I see this. Let's do it. Let me make it
Same.
pretty. And I know that you have to have both. Yeah, I know that you have to have both. But yeah, if I could change my answer, I would say the entire like statistics and financials, and then just like purchasing the property is my least favorite, and then laundry. So yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But yeah, that's
That is the sentence that you've said today that's resonated the most because I feel like we are literally in that
yeah,
same boat where we're like, look, I know I can make this into an experience. And honestly, I
yeah.
think that Airbnb,
I don't care.
yeah, Airbnb specifically has created this really beautiful niche in investing that kind of prioritizes creative women. I mean, I suppose creative men as well, but like
Mm-hmm.
specifically, we're seeing the highest returns because we're not so focused on the numbers. And that to me is like, I could not have asked for a
Right.
better scenario in my life than Airbnb to be able to be like wildly
It's
creative.
validating.
Yeah. And then see that financial return on it. And I'm like, ah, yes. So, but
Yes, I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, but that's what I was going to say. If you visit my accounts, I'm never going to convince you I'm never going to convince you by numbers to do Airbnb. That's not what I'm about. And I know you guys, like, I will say that it's an awesome business model, but you definitely have to want to do it, and you have to want to put in that, like, customer service, hospitality, and design. Like, you just have to,
yep.
no matter what the numbers are.
Yep,
Absolutely.
1000%. Absolutely. Well, we hope that more hosts hear this and are inspired by it because we do not want to see Airbnb go anywhere ever. And we also want to see Airbnb push into a space that's really better than hotels, where people are getting to have these wild experiences off
Yeah.
the beaten path in places that have this Hilton standard. So we appreciate you. Hats off to you.
Yes.
Thankful for hosts like you that resonate with
Yes.
us. Um,
Yes, absolutely.
yeah. And Emily, do you want to
Yeah.
tell our listeners where they can find us as well?
Yes, you can find Sarah and I at the Carwells on TikTok and Instagram, and Superhouse Labs at superhouselabs.com, and at Superhouse Labs on TikTok and Instagram.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Sandy, so much. I'm sure we'll connect with you again in the future, and good luck as you continue scaling.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
All right. And to our listeners, thanks again for catching up with us. We'll catch you next time. See you later.
Bye.